At night, when Hogwarts grows quiet and the corridors breathe more softly, there are parts of the castle that seem to remember things the daytime forgets. This is one of those stories. It begins not with urgency or danger, but with stillness, the kind that settles in the stones when students are asleep and the torches burn low, their flames barely flickering as if they, too, are growing tired. Tonight's tale leads us gently toward a forgotten place near the dungeons, where the air is cool and calm, and the echoes of footsteps fade quickly into silence. It is said that close to the shadowed passages below the great hall, beyond the familiar classroom doors and potion stores, there rests an abandoned staircase. It does not move like the others. It does not rearrange itself or lead somewhere different each day. Instead, it waits, quietly, patiently, as if listening. This staircase has no hurry. It has stood there through countless years of Hogwarts history, worn smooth by time, brushed by candlelight, and softened by the castle's magic. Few notice it anymore, and fewer still pause long enough to feel the gentle hum that lingers around it. Yet, on certain nights, when the castle is especially calm, the staircase seems to invite curiosity, not with excitement, but with a sense of deep, reassuring calm. We begin our journey on such a night. Hogwarts is wrapped in darkness, not an empty darkness, but a comforting one. The windows glow faintly across the towers, and the moon hangs high above the battlements, bathing the stone walls in silver light. Inside, the corridors are quiet, their ancient stones holding warmth from the day. Lanterns glow softly at regular intervals, casting gentle pools of light that stretch and blur at the edges. Far below, near the dungeons, the air carries a cool, steady calm. The scent of old stone and parchment lingers, mixed with something softer, the familiar comfort of a place that has sheltered generations. Somewhere in the distance, water drips slowly, rhythmically, like a lullaby the castle hums to itself. As you settle into this story, allow your thoughts to slow, just as the castle does at night. There is nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to prepare for. This is a story of quiet discovery, of listening rather than searching, and of a place that reveals its secrets only when approached gently. If you find comfort in these sleepy journeys through Hogwarts, you're always welcome to return, to rest, to listen, and to wander once more through the castle's softer hours. Now, let us take our first slow steps toward the abandoned staircase, where the night waits patiently and the magic whispers instead of calls. Harry Potter had always noticed that Hogwarts felt different at night. Not darker or more dangerous, but quieter in a way that made even familiar corridors seem thoughtful, as if the castle itself were resting. On this evening, long after most students had settled into sleep, Harry moved softly through the stone passageways with the unhurried ease of someone who had learned to listen to the castle rather than rush through it. He was not alone. Hermione Granger walked beside him, her footsteps careful, a small book tucked under her arm more out of habit than need. Even when she wasn't studying, Hermione found comfort in having something familiar close at hand. At night, especially, She liked the quiet reassurance of pages and words, though tonight her attention drifted more toward the way the torchlight warmed the stone walls and how the silence felt gentle rather than empty. A step behind them came Ron Weasley, hands tucked into his sleeves, shoulders relaxed. Ron had always claimed he preferred sleep to wandering corridors after hours. Yet there he was, moving without complaint. There was something about calm nights like this that suited him, moments when nothing was expected, when laughter and worry alike had faded, leaving only the simple comfort of being together. They spoke little as they walked, not out of caution, but because conversation felt unnecessary. Hogwarts at night had its own language, the faint crackle of torches, the distant sigh of moving staircases far above, the quiet settling sounds of an ancient building at rest. Even Ron, usually quick with a comment, seemed content to listen. Harry led without quite meaning to. Perhaps it was instinct, or perhaps it was simply that the castle often seemed to guide him when things were calm. He felt no pull of urgency, no sense of danger, only a mild curiosity that felt more like an invitation than a question. Hermione noticed it too. She glanced occasionally at the walls, the ceiling arches, the way shadows softened rather than sharpened as they moved. Hogwarts feels peaceful tonight, she murmured at one point, her voice barely above the echo of their steps. Ron nodded, like it's trying not to wake anyone, he said, smiling faintly. As they descended closer to the dungeons, the air grew cooler, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of cool that felt steady and grounding. Harry found it soothing, as though the castle were reminding them that time could slow down if allowed to. None of them knew exactly why they were walking this way. There was no map guiding them, no plan waiting to unfold. And yet, they trusted the quiet rhythm of the night and each other. In moments like these, Hogwarts didn't demand bravery or cleverness, only patience and openness. Together, the three friends continued onward, unaware that just ahead, tucked beside familiar stone walls, waited a staircase long forgotten by daylight, ready to share its story with those who moved, slowly enough to notice. They reached the lower corridors, in the way one reaches the bottom of a dream, slowly, softly, as if each step were placed with care. The dungeons at night were not frightening, the way students sometimes whispered they were. In truth, they were calmer than much of the castle above. The stone here held the day's coolness and kept it like a secret, steady and comforting. Torchlight seemed warmer against the darker walls, and the air smelled faintly of old parchment, damp stone, and the lingering trace of potion ingredients that had seeped into Hogwarts over centuries. Ron breathed out and pulled his sleeves down over his hands. "It's always colder down here," he murmured, but he didn't sound bothered. If anything, his voice carried the vague satisfaction of someone settling into a quieter part of the world. Hermione's eyes moved thoughtfully along the corridor. "It's different tonight," she said softly. "Listen." Harry listened. At first, he heard only what he expected, torch flames whispering, the distant drip of water somewhere deep within the stones, and the faintest echo of their own footsteps. But beneath those sounds, there was something else, a delicate rhythm that wasn't quite a hum, and wasn't quite silence either. It reminded Harry of the way the great hall felt when it was empty, full of presence, but not noise. They rounded a corner near a familiar set of doors, storage rooms, old classrooms, a narrow passage leading toward the potions corridor. And that was when Harry noticed something he was certain had not been there before. A staircase. It wasn't grand. It didn't spiral dramatically upward like the ones that moved and shifted higher in the castle. This staircase was narrow, made of the same aged stone as the walls, its steps worn smooth at the center, as though many feet had once traveled it. It climbed up into shadow and ended at a landing that vanished into a darkness too gentle to feel threatening. The strange thing was not that it existed. Hogwarts was full of staircases, but that it looked forgotten. The torches near it were dimmer, their light pooling low and refusing to climb the steps. Dust lay thinly along the edges, undisturbed, and the air around it carried a quiet stillness that made the corridor feel suddenly wider. Ron stopped and blinked. Has that always been there? Hermione didn't answer immediately. She stepped closer, her movements slow and respectful, and raised her wand slightly, not as a weapon, but as a source of soft light. The glow fell across the first few steps, and for a moment, the staircase looked entirely ordinary. Then the light shifted, not from Hermione's wand. Her hand was steady, but from the stone itself. The staircase seemed to drink in the light and soften it, warming it into something gentler. The shadows along the steps became deeper, but not darker in a frightening way. More like velvet, more like the quiet shadow behind closed curtains. Harry felt something settle in his chest. The same calm pull he had felt in other quiet corners of Hogwarts. Not a warning, not a demand, just an invitation. He stepped closer. The moment his foot reached the first step, the air changed. It was subtle, like stepping into a room where someone had been speaking and then paused. The corridor behind them remained the same, but the space around the staircase felt more focused, as though it had narrowed its attention to their presence. The rhythmic sound beneath the castle grew clearer, still faint, still soft, but now unmistakably there. It reminded Harry of slow breathing. Ron swallowed, then forced a small grin. "If Filch jumps out, I'm blaming you," he whispered, though his voice didn't carry true worry. Hermione was watching the steps, as if reading a page written in stone. "It's not enchanted like the moving staircases," she said thoughtfully. "This is different. It feels older." Harry's fingers brushed the stone railing. It was cold at first touch, and then, gently, it warmed, not hot, just warmed the way a mug warms your hands on a winter night. And then, the first magical twist unfolded. A sound rose from the staircase. Not a voice, not a knock, not a creak, but a soft, distant echo of footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps descending from above. All three of them froze, not in fear, but in instinctive quiet. The footsteps continued, measured, patient, as if whoever walked them had all the time in the world. But the stairs were empty. Harry leaned forward slightly, peering up toward the shadowed landing. No one appeared. The footsteps did not grow louder, in the way real footsteps would. Instead, they hovered within the stone, present but unreachable, like the memory of movement held in place. Hermione's eyes widened just a fraction. "It's remembering," she whispered. "This staircase remembers." Ron lowered his voice. "Whose footsteps are those?" Hermione shook her head, gently. "Not someone specific. Listen to how calm it is. It's not warning us. It's showing us something." The footsteps slowed, then stopped, right above the third step, as if the invisible walker had paused to turn and look at them. The air grew warmer again, and the torchlight in the corridor dimmed slightly, as though the castle wanted the staircase to be the brightest thing here, not by shining, but by drawing attention. Harry stepped onto the first step fully. The moment he did, the corridor behind them seemed to fade, not vanish, but soften, like a scene drifting out of focus. The staircase became the center of the world, and then the stone walls beside the stairs shifted in a way Harry had never seen. They did not move physically. There was no grinding, no opening. Instead, the surface of the stone grew translucent, like frosted glass that had been warmed by candlelight from behind. Within that softened stone, shapes appeared. A faint outline of a student descending, robes swaying gently, head bowed as if deep in thought. The figure was not sharp or detailed. It was impression more than person, like a memory held loosely. Another shape followed, lighter, smaller, perhaps younger than another. Together they formed a procession of quiet movement. They descended without sound, their steps matching the echo Harry had heard. Ron's mouth fell open slightly. "Blimey," he breathed, but even his amazement was hushed. Hermione lifted her wand a little higher, and the glow touched the stone figures. They did not react, but the light made them clearer, like ink darkening on a page. Harry felt a gentle tug, not pulling him upward, but encouraging him to continue. He moved to the second step. The figures in the stone seemed to shift with him, as if the staircase were aligning its memory to his presence. The air grew richer, with a scent he couldn't place at first, then realized it was candle wax and old vellum, with the faintest trace of lavender, as if someone long ago had carried a small sachet in their pocket. The staircase was not showing danger, it was showing routine. Late-night steps taken quietly to avoid waking the castle, students moving carefully, perhaps after curfew, perhaps in the earliest hours before dawn. The kind of movement that carried neither panic nor excitement, only purpose and patience. Hermione's voice was soft, thoughtful. "This staircase wasn't abandoned by accident," she said. "It was used for something gentle." Ron shifted his weight. "Like what? Secret detentions?" Hermione shook her head, smiling faintly. "No, those would feel tense. This feels calm." Harry placed his foot on the third step. The echo of footsteps changed. It became lighter, softer, like someone walking in socks. The translucent stone beside the stairs showed a different set of impressions now. A professor descending slowly, one hand resting on the rail, posture relaxed. Behind them, a student walked carefully, carrying something close to their chest, a book perhaps, or a small object wrapped in cloth. The shapes paused midway down, as if in quiet conversation. Harry couldn't hear words, but he could feel the tone in the stone itself. Gentle guidance, quiet reassurance, the kind of teaching that happened when no one else was watching. The twist deepened, but stayed soothing. The staircase was not a route to forbidden secrets. It was a route to private calm, a place used for quiet lessons, late-night kindness, small moments of comfort near the dungeons where the world above might have felt too bright, too loud, too busy. Harry looked at Hermione, and she seemed to be feeling the same truth settle in her chest. Ron's expression had softened too, his usual joking quieted by something warm and surprising. Why would it stop being used? Ron asked gently, as if he didn't want to offend the staircase. Hermione ran her fingers along the railing. Maybe it didn't stop, she whispered. Maybe it just stopped being needed, or maybe the castle decided it deserved to rest. As if hearing her, the staircase exhaled again. Yes, exhaled, sending a soft wave of warmth over their hands and faces. The translucent stone memories began to fade, not abruptly, but like candlelight lowering at bedtime. The echoes of footsteps slowed, grew quieter, and then settled into silence. The staircase remained, but now it felt different to them, not abandoned, not forgotten, patient, as though it had been waiting for someone to notice it without trying to claim it. Harry stepped back down to the corridor level. The stone beneath his feet cooled to its usual dungeon chill, and the torchlight returned to normal. The corridor behind them came back into focus, familiar again. Ron blinked, then let out a small breath. That was oddly nice, he murmured. Hermione nodded. It was, she agreed, and it didn't even ask us to go up. Harry looked up the steps one last time. The landing remained shadowed, quiet, undisturbed. No door opened, no hidden passage revealed itself. The staircase had shown them its first secret already, not where it led, but what it had once been. A pathway for quiet care, a place where footsteps had moved gently, not in fear, but in patience. And as they turned away, the staircase remained behind them in calm stillness, its stone warm with memory, its silence full of reassurance, as if reminding them that some magic in Hogwarts was meant not to thrill, but to soothe. They did not speak much as they walked back from the staircase that night. There was no need to fill the quiet with explanations, because the feeling of it clung gently to them, like warmth held in sleeves after standing too close to a fire. The dungeons, usually a place students hurried through, felt almost comforting now, their cool stone balanced by the soft memory of candle wax and slow footsteps. When they returned to the Gryffindor common room, the fire was low and sleepy, and most of the students had already gone to bed. Hermione paused near the portrait hole and looked back toward the corridor they'd come from, as if she could still sense the staircase waiting somewhere beneath the castle. It didn't feel like a secret meant to be taken, she murmured, more to herself than to the others. Harry nodded. It felt like a memory meant to be respected. Ron yawned, stretching. It felt like the castle telling us to go to bed, he said, and this time they all smiled, because it sounded like a joke, but it also felt true. Still, the next evening, all three of them found their thoughts returning to that quiet corner near the dungeons, not with urgency, not with the thrill of solving something, but with the gentle pull of a place that had offered calm and asked for nothing in return. They waited until the castle had settled, until the last echoes of laughter had faded and the staircases above had chosen their places. Then they made their way down again, steps soft, voices low. Each corridor seemed to greet them differently now, as though Hogwarts recognized them as sleepy wanderers rather than rule breakers. The dungeons were quieter than before. The air felt cleaner, the coolness softer. Torchlight pooled warmly along the floor, leaving the ceiling arches in shadow. And there, around the same corner, the staircase waited. It looked unchanged, yet the moment Harry stepped into the space near it, he felt the hum again, slightly deeper than the night before, as if the staircase had been holding its breath and had finally decided to breathe out. Hermione approached carefully and held her wand low, letting only a gentle light spill across the first steps. The stone absorbed it and softened it the way it had before. Ron rubbed his arms. "Right," he whispered. "So we're doing this again." Harry smiled faintly. "Only if it feels right." They stood together at the base, and for a while, nothing happened. The staircase did not show memories. The air remained still. The torch flames did not change. Then the second magical event began, not with sight, but with sound, a whisper, so soft it might have been mistaken for the castle settling. It did not form words at first. It was more like a sigh through stone, a gentle exhale that seemed to carry intention. The hum beneath their feet aligned with it, and for a moment, Harry felt as if he were standing beside a sleeping creature, listening to its calm breathing. Hermione tilted her head, her expression focused. "There," she whispered. "Do you hear that?" Ron nodded slowly. "Sounds like someone humming." It did, a low, steady melody with no sharp edges, like a lullaby remembered rather than sung. It rose from the staircase itself, from the stone, as though the steps held music, the way they held footsteps. Harry placed one hand on the railing. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the humming grew clearer, not louder, just closer, like stepping nearer to a door behind which someone was singing softly. The stone beneath his palm warmed. The air around the staircase thickened gently, not heavy, but quieting, as if it asked the world to lower its voice. Hermione's eyes softened. "It's not just remembering footsteps," she murmured. "It's remembering comfort." And then the staircase changed, not physically, not by moving or shifting, but by revealing something that had been hidden in plain sight. On the wall beside the stairs, where there had always been plain stone, faint patterns began to appear, like chalk marks emerging from beneath layers of time. They were not runes glowing brightly or symbols flashing urgently. They were soft, pale lines that looked like sketches, simple drawings of steps, arrows, circles, and tiny stars. A child's drawings. Harry stared, feeling something gentle turn in his chest. The marks looked old, very old, yet they appeared fresh, as though drawn only moments ago. Hermione stepped closer, her wand light moving carefully across the wall. "These aren't spells," she whispered. "They're notes, like someone was trying to remember how to find something." Ron pointed at one of the tiny stars. "That looks like a little torch." The humming continued, steady and calm. The air smelled faintly of lavender again, stronger than before. It felt like a memory placed gently into the present. Harry took a step onto the first stair. This time, the corridor behind them did not blur or fade. Instead, the staircase itself seemed to deepen, as if the space around it grew more layered. The shadows on the steps thickened into something almost like a curtain, soft and heavy, inviting rather than blocking. He took a second step. The humming shifted slightly, as though responding to the movement. The childlike drawings on the wall brightened just a fraction, still pale, still subtle, but clearer. Hermione moved beside Harry, placing her foot on the first step carefully, as if she didn't want to disturb anything. Ron followed, slower, his usual nervous joking replaced by quiet curiosity. And then the twist revealed itself fully. At the third step, the air opened, not like a door swinging wide, but like a space gently making room. Harry felt it as a soft pressure release, like stepping into a warmer pocket of air. A scent drifted over them, fresh bread, warm tea, candle wax, clean linen. Comforting things, as if someone had once brought kindness down into these cold dungeon corridors and left traces of it behind. The stone wall beside the staircase became translucent again, but this time it did not show a procession of students. It showed a room, a small room, tucked beside the staircase, hidden within the thickness of the stone itself. Not large, not grand, just a modest space with a simple wooden bench, a shelf lined with neatly folded blankets, a small lantern resting on a hook, and a low table that looked as though it had once held mugs of something warm. Ron's breath came out slowly. "You're kidding," he whispered. "A little restroom?" Hermione's expression softened into something almost tender. "A place to sit," she said gently, "to breathe, to warm up." Harry watched the image carefully. The room looked real, but not fully present, more like a memory made visible. The blankets did not move, the lantern did not flicker, yet the feeling of the place came through clearly. It was not a hiding place for mischief. It was a shelter. And then, within that translucent memory room, another shape appeared, not sharp, not detailed. A small figure, likely a student, sitting on the bench with knees drawn up, shoulders hunched as if cold or tired. A second figure entered, taller, robes swaying softly. The taller figure placed something on the table, a mug perhaps, and then sat beside the smaller figure, their posture calm. Harry could not hear their words, yet he felt them. Gentle reassurance, quiet guidance, the kind of comfort that did not require explanation. Hermione's voice was barely audible. "This staircase wasn't abandoned," she whispered. "It was used to bring people down here quietly, to help them when they didn't want anyone to see." Ron swallowed, his eyes fixed on the scene. "Like when someone's upset," he said softly, "or tired, or just needs a minute." The humming deepened, becoming warmer, as if the staircase approved of their understanding. The childlike drawings on the wall pulsed faintly, tiny stars and arrows glowing like remembered kindness. Harry felt something settle inside him. He had known many hidden places in Hogwarts, passages, rooms, secrets. But this was different. This wasn't about discovery. It was about care. A quiet route to a quiet space. A staircase that led not to adventure, but to comfort. Hermione reached out as if to touch the translucent wall, but she stopped wood before her fingers met the stone. Even that small restraint felt right, as though the room beyond did not need to be entered. It needed only to be seen and respected. The scene inside the wall faded gently, like a candle being lowered. The scent of bread and tea softened. The humming became faint again, settling back into the stone. The drawings on the wall dimmed until they were barely visible, returning to near invisibility, like chalk washed away by time. Harry stepped back down to the corridor level, and Hermione and Ron followed. The staircase did not resist their leaving. It seemed content, as though it had shared what it wanted to share. They stood at the base again, looking up into the quiet shadow. Ron exhaled slowly. "That's actually brilliant," he murmured. "Hogwarts made a staircase just for comfort." Hermione nodded. "And it hid it," she said softly, "so the comfort could stay private." Harry looked at the worn steps, imagining all the nights someone had walked them, not for trouble, but for warmth, for quiet, for someone to sit beside them in a stone room and say, without fuss, that it was going to be all right. The second twist left no puzzle to solve, no door to open. It left only a gentle truth. Even in the coldest part of the castle, Hogwarts had built a way to guide someone toward kindness. And as they turned away, the staircase remained behind them, still and patient, its humming tucked back into stone, its hidden room resting quietly within the walls, holding comfort like a secret the castle kept only for those who needed it. After that second night, the staircase lingered in their thoughts like a half-remembered dream, clear in feeling, soft in detail. None of them spoke about it during the day. Lessons continued as usual. Cauldrons simmered, parchment filled with notes, and the castle bustled with its ordinary rhythms. Yet beneath it all, Harry sensed a quieter current flowing, one that led back toward the dungeons and that narrow, patient staircase. The suspense did not come from fear of what might happen next, but from a gentle wondering. What else did the staircase remember, and why had it chosen now to show them anything at all? They returned on the third evening without planning to. It simply happened. One moment, they were lingering near the common room fire. The next, they were walking together through corridors that seemed to recognize their footsteps. The castle felt especially still, as if it had decided to rest more deeply than usual. The staircases above did not shift. Portraits slept with their frames dimmed and quiet. Even the suits of armor seemed to stand more gently, as though they were careful not to clatter. The dungeons welcomed them with their steady coolness. Torchlight glowed low, and the familiar sense of stone and old magic felt comforting rather than oppressive. When the staircase came into view, it looked no different than before. No glow, no humming, just stone steps worn smooth by time. Ron exhaled quietly. Suppose it doesn't do anything tonight. Hermione nodded. That's all right, she said. It doesn't owe us anything. Harry appreciated that thought. He liked that the staircase wasn't something to activate or unlock. It wasn't waiting for clever words or bravery. It was simply there, offering itself only when it wished. They stood at the base for a while, saying nothing. The silence wrapped around them, not tight, but loose and warm. Harry leaned back against the wall and let his thoughts drift. For the first time in a long, while there was nothing pressing at him, no danger looming, no mystery demanding resolution, just the soft awareness of being present. Then, slowly, something changed. The air shifted, not dramatically, but like a breeze passing through a closed room. The torches flickered gently, their flames lowering rather than flaring. The staircase did not hum this time. Instead, it seemed to listen. Hermione straightened slightly. It feels like it's waiting, she whispered. Harry felt it too, a quiet tension, not sharp or alarming, but curious, the kind that asks you to stay a little longer. He placed one foot on the first step, not to climb, but simply to acknowledge the invitation. The stone warmed under his shoe, just a little. The suspense grew, not from movement, but from stillness. The staircase did not show memories or hidden rooms. Instead, the world around them softened, the corridor lights dimmed further, and the space seemed to narrow gently, as if drawing focus inward. Harry noticed his breathing slow, matching the calm rhythm of the castle. Even Ron, who usually fidgeted when things grew quiet, stood still with his hands tucked loosely into his sleeves. The first sign of change came from above. A faint glow appeared at the landing, soft and amber, like a lantern seen through mist. It did not brighten the corridor. It didn't spill downward aggressively. It simply existed, steady and reassuring. Hermione's voice was barely audible. That light wasn't there before. Harry nodded. He felt no urgency to reach it. In fact, the thought of rushing towards it felt wrong, as though the staircase preferred patience. He took another step. The glow pulsed gently, responding to the movement. The air warmed again, carrying with it a subtle scent, clean linen, and something herbal, like chamomile. Comforting scents, bedtime scents. Ron smiled faintly. Smells like Madame Pomfrey's cupboards, he whispered. Hermione smiled too, though her eyes stayed fixed on the light, or the castle remembering how to take care of people. As Harry reached the third step, the walls beside the staircase softened once more, not fully translucent this time, but reflective, like polished stone catching light at just the right angle. Within that reflection, they did not see figures. They saw moments. A student sitting quietly on the steps, head resting against the wall, eyes closed. A professor pausing beside them, not hovering, not interrogating, just standing there, offering presence. Another moment showed someone descending slowly, one hand trailing along the railing, breathing evening air as if grounding themselves before returning to the busier parts of the castle. These moments did not unfold in sequence. They drifted in and out, like memories surfacing gently and then sinking back into stone. Harry felt a soft ache in his chest, not sadness, but recognition. Hogwarts had always been a place of lessons and trials, but here was proof of something quieter, the castle's understanding that sometimes the most important thing was rest. The glow at the landing brightened just enough to reveal the outline of a door, not a hidden door carved with symbols or locks, just a simple wooden door, slightly ajar, light spilling out from within. The suspense deepened, not with fear but with curiosity wrapped in calm. The door did not beckon. It did not open wider. It waited. Hermione placed a hand lightly on the railing. "I don't think it wants us to go in," she said softly. "Not unless we need to." Ron nodded slowly. "Feels like it's there for when someone's had a rough night." Harry understood. The staircase wasn't offering discovery for discovery's sake. It was offering reassurance that such a place existed. He took one more step. The door's light warmed, but remained steady. The reflections in the stone grew clearer for a moment, then softened again, and then, without warning, the glow dimmed. Not extinguished, just lowered. The door eased shut, not with a sound, but with a sense of completion. The reflections faded back into ordinary stone. The scents softened until they were barely noticeable. The staircase exhaled. The suspense resolved itself gently, like a lullaby reaching its final note. Harry stepped back down to the corridor floor. The torches returned to their usual glow. The air cooled to its steady dungeon calm. Everything looked normal again. Ron let out a quiet breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "That was nice," he said. "Sort of like the castle." Checking in, Hermione nodded, and reminding us that not everything needs to be used or explored to be understood. They lingered a moment longer, just in case. The staircase remained still, its steps quiet, its stone calm. No hum, no glow, no memory, yet the feeling remained. As they turned to leave, Harry glanced back one last time. The staircase stood exactly as it always had, narrow, worn, unassuming, but now he knew what rested within it. Not secrets meant to be uncovered, but moments meant to be held quietly. The gentle suspense of the night did not leave him restless. Instead, it settled him. The kind of suspense that invites patience rather than demands answers. As they walked away, the dungeons felt warmer, the corridors kinder. Hogwarts seemed to sigh contentedly, as though pleased that its quiet corner had been noticed, and just as content to let it return to stillness. The staircase waited again, not for curiosity, but for need. After the third night, they stopped thinking of the staircase as something to return to on purpose. It became something else, an understanding that lived quietly in the back of their minds, like knowing there was a warm blanket folded somewhere, even if you didn't need it yet. The castle had shown them enough to recognize the shape of its kindness, and in a place as full of loud magic as Hogwarts, that quiet kindness felt rare. Still, the days that followed changed their choices in small ways. Harry noticed that he walked differently now. He didn't rush through corridors when he didn't have to. He paused more often, not because he was trying to find secrets, but because Hogwarts seemed to reward patience with comfort. Sometimes he would stop beside a window and watch rain blur the landscape beyond the glass. Sometimes he would linger in a stairwell where torchlight made the stone look honey warm. He wasn't searching for the staircase. He was learning the castle's gentler rhythms. Hermione changed even more quietly. She started noticing students who looked tired, truly tired, the kind that wasn't fixed by sleep alone. A first year sitting alone after dinner, shoulders drawn inward. A student leaving potions with a strained expression, walking too quickly. Hermione didn't chase them or offer speeches. She simply softened her own presence. A calm hello, a gentle question, a seat offered without making it a big thing. Ron, for his part, discovered something he didn't expect. He liked being civil when it was simple, not in dramatic, heroic ways, but in small comforts. If someone dropped books in a corridor, he helped gather them without teasing. If the common room felt too loud, he chose a quieter corner without complaint. He even started carrying a few spare biscuits from breakfast sometimes, not for himself, but because he'd noticed how often hunger made people prickly and tired. None of these changes were announced. They just happened, like the castle's slow breathing had taught them to do the same. One evening, as dusk settled into night, they found themselves in the library, not because they needed to be there, but because it was quiet and warm. Lamps glowed softly along the rows, their light steady and kind. The air smelled of paper and polished wood, and every sound seemed gentle, the turning of a page, the scratch of a quill, the soft shuffle of footsteps. Harry sat with his hands around a mug of tea he'd borrowed from the common room, not drinking much, just enjoying the warmth. Hermione read without urgency, her brows relaxed. Ron dozed slightly, head tilted toward a stack of books he'd sworn he was definitely going to look through. It could have ended there, in calm. But then Hermione noticed someone near the far shelves. A student, older than a first year, maybe fourth or fifth, standing very still, as if they didn't know where to go. Their shoulders were tense, their hands clenched around the suspicious strap of a bag. They didn't pull a book from the shelf. They didn't look at a table. They just stood, breathing shallowly, as though the quiet of the library was the only thing keeping them from breaking into tears. Hermione didn't stare. She didn't whisper to Harry or Ron. She simply closed her book gently and stood. Harry watched her, understanding immediately. There was no dramatic plan in his mind, just a quiet sense of what felt right. Ron blinked awake when he saw them move. "What?" he mumbled. Hermione gave him a look that said, "Please don't make this loud." Ron, surprisingly, didn't. He stood up too, rubbing his eyes, and followed. They approached the student slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. Hermione's voice was soft. "Hi," she said. "Are you all right?" The student flinched slightly, then shook their head, a small movement that looked like it took effort. Their eyes were a little red. They swallowed as if trying to keep their voice steady. "I'm fine," they murmured, clearly not fine. Harry didn't ask for details. He didn't offer advice. He just stood there, present, letting the silence be supportive rather than awkward. Ron shifted, then quietly pulled a biscuit from his pocket and held it out without a word. It was such an odd gesture, simple and human, that the student's expression softened for the first time. They hesitated, then took it with a small nod, as if grateful someone had offered something without demanding anything in return. Hermione spoke again gently. "If you want somewhere quieter than this," she said, "there are places in the castle that feel safe, not secret, just safe." The student looked up, eyes flicking between them. "Like the hospital wing?" Hermione smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but sometimes it helps to sit somewhere that doesn't feel like you're being looked after, somewhere you can just breathe." Harry felt the staircase in his mind then, not as a destination, but as an idea, a quiet route to comfort, a space that existed for moments like this. He didn't say the staircase's location. He didn't describe it as a hidden wonder. It didn't feel right to turn it into a story to be shared. Instead, he offered something simpler. "We can walk with you," he said. "Just for a bit, no questions." Ron nodded. "Yeah, just a walk." The student's shoulders loosened a fraction. "Okay," they whispered. They left the library together, moving slowly through corridors where the torchlight was warm and the castle felt calm. Hermione chose the route carefully, not toward the busy staircases, not through noisy halls, but along quieter passages where footsteps sounded softer. When they reached a stairwell that led down toward cooler stone, Hermione paused. She didn't point. She didn't say, "This is the place," and she simply stopped where the air felt steady and kind. "Here's good," she said softly. They sat on a wide stone step, not far from where the castle's deeper calm could be felt. The student ate the biscuit slowly. Ron leaned back against the wall, relaxed. Harry watched torchlight flicker gently. Hermione sat close enough to be supportive, far enough to be respectful. No one forced conversation, and in that choice, in the decision to offer presence rather than solutions, the castle seemed to breathe with them. The stone felt warmer, the air steadied, the silence became something soft rather than empty. After a while, the students' breathing slowed, their shoulders dropped. They didn't speak of what had hurt them. They didn't need to. They simply sat in quiet comfort, held by the gentle magic of Hogwarts and the even gentler choice of being kind without demand. When they finally stood to leave, the student whispered, "Thank you." Hermione nodded. Harry smiled softly. Ron gave a small shrug that meant it was nothing, though his eyes were kind. And as they walked back toward Gryffindor Tower, Harry realized something important. The staircase was not the only comfort Hogwarts offered. It was a reminder that kindness could be quiet, that help could be simple, that sometimes the best choice was not to chase secrets, but to become the kind of person the castle's gentle spaces were made for. There was no storm, no sudden hush sweeping through the castle, no feeling that something important was about to happen. Hogwarts simply grew quieter than usual, the way it sometimes did when the moon hung low and the stone seemed to remember its age. The corridors rested, the staircases settled, even the portraits appeared to sleep more deeply, their frames dim and still. Harry woke with a sense of calm awareness rather than urgency. It felt like remembering something important without yet knowing what it was. When he met Hermione and Ron in the common room later that evening, he saw the same quiet recognition in their faces. No one suggested going anywhere, and yet, when they left the tower together, it felt inevitable. They did not speak as they walked. The castle guided them gently downward through passages that felt familiar, yet newly peaceful. The torches glowed low, their light steady and warm. When they reached the dungeon corridor and turned toward the staircase, Harry felt no anticipation, no curiosity, only a sense of arriving exactly where they were meant to be. The staircase waited. It did not hum, it did not glow, it stood in complete stillness, its worn steps holding the same patient quiet they always had. For the first time since they'd discovered it, Harry did not feel the pull to step forward. Instead, he understood. Hermione seemed to feel it too. She stopped a few paces back, hands folded loosely in front of her. Ron leaned against the wall, relaxed, his expression thoughtful rather than wary. Harry took a slow breath. The staircase was not meant to be climbed again. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. And that was the revelation. It was not a passage meant to be used repeatedly, or a place meant to be shared widely. It was not a secret waiting to be uncovered, or a mystery waiting to be solved. It was a promise the castle had already kept. Hogwarts did not hide the staircase because it was dangerous. It hid it because it was gentle. Harry stepped closer, not onto the steps, but beside them. He rested his hand lightly on the railing, not seeking warmth this time, but acknowledging what had been given. The stone was cool, steady, familiar, and then, without any movement or sound, the air shifted, not outward, but inward. For a moment, the corridor seemed to deepen, as though the space held more meaning than before. The staircase did not show memories. It did not reveal rooms or drawings or light. Instead, Harry felt a quiet understanding settle into place. The staircase was not a place of comfort. It was a reminder of responsibility, a reminder that Hogwarts had always been more than lessons and exams, more than rules and adventures. It was a home, one that understood when its students needed quiet kindness rather than attention, presence rather than solutions. The staircase had existed to guide those moments into safety, and now it no longer needed to, because the castle had passed that responsibility on. Harry glanced at Hermione and Ron, and he knew they felt it too, not in words, but in the way they stood, grounded, calm, attentive. The castle did not need to show them anything else. They had already learned. Hermione spoke softly, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the truth of it. "It trusted us," she said, "not with the staircase, but with what it stood for." Ron nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said, "guess it figured we'd noticed." Harry felt a warmth in his chest, not excitement, not pride, but something steadier, the kind of warmth that came from understanding something without needing proof. The staircase had not been meant to be rediscovered. It had been meant to be replaced. Replaced by students who noticed when someone was overwhelmed, by friends who knew when to sit beside someone instead of asking questions, by quiet acts of care that didn't demand recognition. Hogwarts did not need the staircase anymore because its students had learned how to be one. The air around them softened once more, not with magic, but with completion. The torches burned steadily. The corridor felt ordinary again. Harry removed his hand from the railing. For the first time, the staircase felt like stone alone. Still there, still real, but no longer carrying the same weight of presence. Its work was done. Hermione smiled gently, not at the staircase, but at the idea it had left behind. Ron straightened, stretching slightly, as if letting go of something he hadn't known he was holding. They turned to leave together. Halfway down the corridor, Harry glanced back once more. The staircase stood quietly, unchanged, but now it felt less like a secret and more like a memory, something that had been important, had served its purpose, and had been allowed to rest. As they walked away, the castle did not follow them with whispers or warmth. It simply existed around them, steady and whole. And Harry realized something else. This was not a story about discovering a hidden place. It was a story about becoming the kind of people a hidden place was created for. The climax was not a door opening. It was an understanding settling in quietly, like the final note of a lullaby. And in that understanding, Hogwarts felt more like home than ever before. The days that followed moved gently, as though the castle itself had decided to slow its pace. Nothing changed on the surface. Classes continued, meals were served, staircases shifted when they wished, but beneath it all, there was a softened rhythm that Harry noticed more clearly now. Hogwarts did not feel quieter because something had ended. It felt quieter because something had settled. Harry found comfort in small routines. Morning light through tall windows, the steady clink of cutlery in the great hall, the familiar weight of his bag over his shoulder as he walked between lessons. Each detail felt more present, more complete, as though the castle were inviting him to notice rather than rush. Hermione, too, seemed at ease. She studied with the same focus as always, but her intensity had softened into something kinder. She took breaks without guilt. She listened more than she spoke. When someone asked her a question, she answered carefully, without the urgency to fix everything at once. Ron laughed easily again, not loudly, not to fill space, but because things felt lighter. He complained about homework as usual, but without the edge of frustration. He napped in sunny corners when he could, unbothered by the idea that rest might be wasted time. They did not return to the staircase, not because they were avoiding it, but because they didn't need to. Its presence had folded itself into the castle's broader calm, becoming part of the quiet understanding that Hogwarts offered those who paid attention. One evening, as dusk melted into night, the three of them sat together in the common room. The fire burned low and steady, casting soft shadows across the walls. A few students read quietly, others whispered before drifting upstairs to bed. The room felt safe, enclosed, warm. Harry watched the flames and thought of stone steps and hidden kindness, of lantern light and quiet breathing. He realized that the comfort he'd felt near the staircase was here too, in shared silence, in the simple act of sitting together without expectation. Hermione closed her book and leaned back, eyes half-lidded. "I like nights like this," she said softly. when nothing needs to happen. Ron nodded, stretching. Best kind, he agreed. Harry smiled, feeling the truth of it settle deep within him. There was no sense of loss in letting the mystery rest. No itch of curiosity left unsatisfied. The story had reached its natural ending, not with answers, but with peace. As the common room slowly emptied, they rose and headed toward the dormitories. The staircases did not shift beneath them. The portraits barely stirred. The castle seemed content to let the night unfold at its own pace. Harry paused briefly at a window, looking out over the dark grounds. The moonlight lay gently across the lawn, and the lake reflected it in soft ripples. Somewhere below, near the dungeons, a staircase stood in quiet stillness, unchanged, unneeded, complete. He did not feel drawn to it. He felt grateful for it. In bed later, as the castle's sounds softened into near silence, Harry let his thoughts drift. He thought of moments when he had needed someone to sit beside him, to listen without questions. He thought of how Hogwarts, in its own ancient way, had understood that need long before he had. Sleep came easily. The castle held him gently, stone and magic working together not to dazzle, but to soothe. There were no whispers, no glowing symbols, no footsteps echoing in memory, only rest. And as the night deepened, Hogwarts returned fully to itself, quiet, watchful, and warm, ready to offer its calm again whenever it was needed. And so the night settles fully over Hogwarts, the way a blanket settles after a long day, slowly, carefully, with a quiet understanding of comfort. The castle no longer asks anything of you. It does not expect curiosity or courage or cleverness. It simply exists, steady and kind, holding its warmth within ancient stone. Somewhere deep below, near the dungeons, the abandoned staircase rests exactly as it always has. It does not glow. It does not hum. It does not remember aloud. It sleeps, content in the knowledge that its purpose has been gently carried forward, not in stone, but in people. Up here, where you are now, the night feels safe. Torches burn low but steady. Corridors breathe softly. The air carries the familiar calm of a place that knows you belong. Hogwarts has watched countless nights pass like this, and it will watch countless more. There is no rush. There is no ending to miss. If your thoughts feel heavy, you can let them rest here. If your day has lingered too long to osenes, your mind, you can allow it to fade into the background, just like the echoes of footsteps disappearing into stone. Nothing follows you into sleep except the quiet reassurance that you are held. You are not required to solve anything. You are not expected to understand every secret. The castle has already done its work for tonight. All that remains is rest. As your breathing slows, imagine the castle settling with you, walls warm, halls quiet, windows glowing faintly against the dark. Somewhere, a candle burns low and steady. Somewhere, a staircase waits patiently, no longer needed, but never forgotten. You are safe here. Let your thoughts drift like torchlight along stone. Let the magic soften into stillness. Let sleep arrive gently, without an effort, without an interruption. Hogwarts will remain, and when morning comes, the castle will wake again. But for now, it keeps watch so you don't have to. Good night.